Hey everybody, I'm Diane Gibbs and this is Design Recharge, and this is normally a rapid recharge week, which is once a month I do like a 20-minute, or it's supposed to be 20 minutes, but it almost never goes 20 minutes because I can talk to myself for a long time. So anyway, hey Nick, nice to see, and Amy, good to see you. So I'm kind of getting over a cold still, so I'm going to try to mute when I do it. I do have cough drops. I'm going to have to put them in, but Lenny, I asked Lenny to come on today, Lenny Terenzi, who's my friend and good mentor and just a great designer and a huge encourager to me. And I asked him to come on. We're doing a workshop in almost a little over a month at Creative South, which is at, it's $150, and you get 2 hours of us together. And then I got a cough. Mute button though. We're going to do 2 hours of intensive kind of workshop. And then we're also going to do some stuff after the workshop, not like the next day, but like throughout the year, we're going to do something like once a month. Anyway, so we wanted to so I asked Lenny, usually I do the rapid recharge by myself, but I asked Lenny to come on and so we could talk about it together to kind of get you guys jazzed up about it and just do a little promo for it. We both really love Creative South. Even if you don't go to our workshop, there's plenty of other awesome workshops.
Oh, yes.
And I'm fine. You can go to theirs as well. So Lenny, tell everybody, you're normally at your office, but today you're at home.
Yes.
You want to give them a little background?
They called school early for a lot of the counties in our state because of the weather. So I had to pick up quickly and grab Bella from school, and we just headed home to hunker down for the day. So you are seeing the back of my kitchen there.
Give us an update on the weather. Is it super bad?
No, right now here, Bella totally got a free half day off so far. Whether or not it gets any worse over the next hour or two remains to be seen. But so far, so good. And I hope that for sure. I think our southern and eastern counties, as we get towards the beach, are going to get hit a little bit harder.
Yeah, that's kind of how it was. There was like a band because it came through us last night. And so we just kind of skirted in the middle. There was only one tornado sighted, but we were under whatever the worst one is. They were like, take cover.
Yeah, the warning.
I asked my husband, I was like, it says my phone, with the alert said to take cover. He's like, it's not raining. And I'm like, okay. He's like, just go back to work. So I just went back to work. And it never did. It was really, there were a few limbs down, but we had more at other times. So anyway, hopefully it'll be like that for you guys.
Yeah. So that's what I hope.
But this is not a weather
good.
chat. So you really have used Creative South has been a big kind of, influence in your design and in your life kind of as a change. And so you spoke at Creative South last year and gave your story. And then from that, you really kind of got this idea to kind of do a workshop. And then we talked about it, and then we kind of came together and said, for sure, we want to do this. So tell a little bit about why Creative South has been such a big part of your growth, I guess.
Sure, absolutely. So for those in the room that saw the talk, there's a backstory there that'll probably be a little too long to get into, but you kind of, the 1 minute synopsis is big life changes, divorce, all that kind of like, holy cow, life's kind of new and in front of me. Everything that I wasn't doing before in life, let's do now, which involved getting around people and getting involved with people. Like Blake just said, stories on the Creative South podcast, and there's a lot of my blog posts on my site, heymonkeydesign.com, outline it as well. So you can definitely get some background there. But I went to Creative South 2013. I do not know how I found it. I think I was Googling Design Conference Southeast, because at the time I was also still very afraid to fly. So I wanted someplace I could drive. And it came up, and I bought tickets and went, me and a friend, totally wallflowered it. I just hung out in the back, but I did meet Mike Jones, and it's pretty hard to be a wallflower around Mike Jones. He pretty much doesn't allow it. I got to know him, and then Weapons of Mass Creation Fest 13, Mike and I were rooming next door to each other, and we were just chained at the hip. We became best friends, and he offered me the chance to speak at 2015 because our buddy Scotty, Studio Temporary, was speaking in 2014. So that gave me a year and a half to kind of prep and get my, get the gumption up and all that. But in that year and a half, I went to 2014, and where 2013 I was a little invisible. 2014 I was a vendor, a sponsor. I did Ink Wars.
You pushed yourself though to be uncomfortable, right?
Yes. Oh yeah, definitely. It wasn't like I was all bragging, like I'm going to do all this great stuff now. It was like
super uncomfortable.
Yes. Because I still I'm not a letterer. Like, Mike Jones is such a phenomenal letterer, but it's just like, I'm just going to do it, go for it. And I almost beat him too. He'd like to say otherwise, but we'll be hearing that fight for the next month. Just follow us on Twitter. I did beat him, he cheated, but after that, yeah, he can't even be here. So I'm just going to absolutely rail on him.
What is
beat a man when he can't defend himself.
0826? 826.
Bucket 826, 826.
Here.
Yeah. I just really I definitely pushed myself in an uncomfortable and was pushed into an uncomfortable place. Ink Wars had a competitor that had to drop out because they couldn't make it. And Matt Helm just was like, "You want it?" And I was kind of like, and then he was kind of like, "You're doing, I'm asking you, but you're doing it." So I did it. And it was so wow. I felt super energized and charged afterwards. And then I just took that whole next year of those experiences and growth into 2015, which was my speaking year. And then just summed up my whole backstory with my current story and some hopeful prospects for a future story at that point. And just got the reaction blew me away. From walking out on stage, the reaction I got, to leaving the stage, the reaction I got, especially because I ran really long. And so that people were interested. But then afterwards, so many people came up to me and just poured out amazingly personal stories. They just felt an instant connection to me, which means what I said touched them. And I was just like, wow, this is something else. And then going home, the same thing happened. I just got so many emails of, people who literally were telling me that family members were dying, and they were getting ready to deal with that, and just reaching out in general. They weren't even saying, what should I do? I think they just felt like I need to share this with somebody. And so it was just really amazing to hear that. And then I got to speak at Weapons of Mass Creation in 2015 as well, which, is where Mike and I really got to be friends. So to be able to hit the two conferences in 1 year that really changed my life, and then the same thing happened at that one as well. And kind of in between that, obviously we talked, but there were very clear patterns in the things people were sharing. And so I kind of felt like, there's something here to help people and be able to give back and maybe pull people out of those zones where they feel like they're safe and they're comfortable, because usually if that happens too long, you end up becoming stale or depressed because you're just in this one little mode, and to kind of get ripped out of it can be
I think Peter said probably because it felt like you were really genuinely pouring it all out there for everybody to see. It felt really sincere and relatable, and it felt real. And I think that was, I didn't realize that you had gone over until you said, I have to finish. Don't kick me off the stage. Because it was really an engaging story, and you had us kind of wrapped in, and it was a great message. And so to me, one of the messages is it doesn't matter, even if you're uncomfortable, you just have to get out there and you really connect. You need to connect with some other people, but it can't just be a kind of shallow dive. You have to actually really dive in pretty deep. And I always have volunteered. So since my first year, I was like, hey, can I help? And I'm sure they don't know who I was. I had interviewed Mike, I think, at the beginning of the year, because I had found it. And I was like, oh, I think this will be a really cool conference. And I was really stoked for it. but I didn't know that it was going to be what it was. And to me, there's a couple things that are different about Creative South. And I remember talking to Ashley when I got back, and I was like, you have to go. And so I can't wait till her baby is not a baby, and then I can take her with me. But it was, you all go to the same episodes is what I was about to say. You all go to the same talks. And I like at other conferences, you like pick what you're going to go see, and there's like 15 to 40 people in a room. To me, that we all are sharing the same experience, and then we break at the same time and we go to lunch. Now, granted, not everybody goes to every session. I mean, I do, because I'm a geek. Sure. I'm like, I'm in there. I've claimed my spot in the middle. I like it, like just like if I was watching a movie, I'm like 12 from the back in the middle. Right. Like I know where I like to be, and it's very uncomfortable probably for the other people because I'm always going to be scooting in, but because I have a small bladder. But it's that you get to share this experience, and these are people who weren't just talking about, look, here's my portfolio, blah blah blah, and here's all these awesome things that I've done. Is that they were telling their story, their whole story, the inside work story, but also the outside work story. And the stuff, to me, it was like youth camp for designers. And I was like, because when I went to youth camp, I do have a really small bladder. Johnny knows. I think Scott Biersack and I talked about it in my very first year. I was like, call me Little Bladder. That's my Indian name. Anyway, or a Pizzolette. Anyway, anyway, get off track. But anyway, youth camp. Yeah. Like you get inspired, and you want to go and do better things, and you want to connect with more people, and you want to be a better person, but you also want to be a better designer. But it's like you're with your people. It's like God has placed you down there with all these people who are similar to you, and you're never with these people in the regular. I mean, even if you go to work, you're with people like that. But to me, it's like so many people who have the same sort of beliefs, and they geek out on type or lettering or illustration or something. And they spend so much of their day thinking about this stuff and then talking about it. And it's like, if you always felt like an outcast, you finally feel like you're with your people. And to me, Absolutely. It was like freeing. And then just hearing everybody's story, I think, is a really, really neat. And Johnny says Creative South to me was a much better design experience at a third of the cost than AIGA. And granted, that was the AIGA National Conference. And me and Lenny both are on the AIGA board, so we totally support AIGA. But Creative South is a priority, and I definitely go to that first. So.
And it's something that I sat down with a local conference organizer, and he was asking me about a local conference around here. And, he sees how vocal I am about Creative South, and he's like, why? What is it about it? And I, you can regurgitate the stuff that we always say. It's the people, it's that. But I was like, honestly, you can't, it's intangible, right? There's something magical that could not be duplicated. Like I see a lot of people, and rightfully so, can we do a Creative North or a Creative Midwest or a Creative Canada? Absolutely. Like, go for it. Don't be disappointed if it's not Creative South, because there's exactly. Yeah. Like Johnny said, it's very organic without trying. It's just happened. It just happened. It wasn't orchestrated at all. Mike is so selfless and so genuine that totally bleeds through to the conference and everybody that's now on the team. And I'm actually, I've gone from my first, year to speaker to on staff this year. So it bleeds over to everything, and it's just intangible. You can't put a finger on why it's so magical. It's magical because of the people and the experiences and the stories, but how all that came together so perfectly is not a thing that you can't plan.
Right. So Peter said it's like therapy for designers, just Southern style. So I'm glad, Bob. It's a tradition. It's a tradition for me too. And so last year I brought some people with me. I didn't pay for them, but they came and they didn't come in my car, but I told them about it, and they came from the same city I was in, and I knew them really well, and they were blown away. But it wasn't just that you stay with those same people you came with. And that, again, to me, is that second best part, is that you go to the talks and then they break, and then you go out and you go to the vendor village, or you go, but Columbus is so small. I mean, it's not super small, but where we meet is really safe. And it's really, it's small where we meet. But it's very, you can walk to everywhere, and it just feels, anyway, it's just very comfortable, and it's not like anybody's putting on airs. And so you go to lunch, and if there's just people that you wanted to talk to, you should just go up to them and say, hey, are you eating? I mean, unless they're vampires, they're not eating, right? Hopefully. But they're, that was great. Anyway, so like you just go and you just eat and you have a meal with them. And I think, to me, that is yes. A part. And nobody's like, I remember one time last year, there was this guy, he obviously had run out of the place so that he could be the first one at the Millimush or whatever the place is that we ate. And he was sitting alone, and he had his lanyard on. And I was like, do you want to eat with us? He's like, well, I already finished. I was like, well, why don't you just sit with us? And, I mean, I guess I can be a little pushy, but he just brought his chair over. And then I just think it's about like that open atmosphere. And there are people from all over, the United States, the Colemans came from Australia. Ian,
yeah. And they're coming again.
I know, and Ian's coming again. Barnard's coming from London, and Fraser is coming. And then a bunch of people I met from Canada. I mean, California. It's not like it's just people in the Southeast. And to me, that's really neat. So like Kevin and I, we kind of got out late one day. I think it was a Saturday, maybe. It was towards the end, right, Kevin? So Kevin and his girlfriend were in line at Subway, and I think they were right. And I had gone like with some people that I did know, but I didn't even sit with them really. So I said, Kevin, can I eat with you? Can I sit with you? And he said yes, because I'm pushy, And so we ate Subway together, and then we ended up having this shared connection. And he's like from up north somewhere, and I can't remember where. But
Jersey.
Anyway, I think that's the part that's so neat. And Meredith went with me the first year, and she's hopefully going to be able to come back this year. She has a baby now, so who knows?
Yeah, it's just it truly is a culture unto itself. I mean, I want to think last year we actually trended on Twitter even. Like I remember looking afterwards, like the chatter was so huge that we trended, and that's a small conference when you think of your HOW and your AIGAs, where there's like, sometimes thousands of people, and, and it's huge, but it's, there's not a more vocal, passionate group of people, I think, than people who go to, to Creative South. It's passionate. Like I'll see people, and I totally get it, because I understand money, and I understand family, and I understand location and all that. But like, I see people, it's like, oh, I've been thinking about going, and I just want to be like, well, how could you even just think about it? Like, how is it even a thought? It's like one of those things where you just want to be like, just stop thinking and go. Again, I understand all the factors that come into play, because we have to be adults. But I mean, unfortunately,
I know people who they'll on Twitter, they'll know somebody and they'll say, hey, is anybody need? I'm looking for a roommate. And I know that Alicia did that last year, and she ended up sharing a room. And, it's like, and Alicia took all the photos for the conference last year. So, it's like, it is really a family kind of feel. And so I think that that's a really, really good thing for us to be able to do as a designer. But the one other thing I think that is nice is that you go and they're super passionate about design, but they're also, I don't think I met anybody that was just super passionate about themselves. They're really passionate about other people and about the story, about sharing or helping, And I think that was another kind of difference. I mean, I've been to a lot of other conferences, and it's usually you get some takeaways, but you don't make a ton of friends, And this, you get way more friends, and not that takeaways, but I get a lot. I always fill up a sketchbook, so I definitely.
Yeah, let's say the takeaways are very genuine. Like it's not a takeaway you put in a field notebook. I mean, there's that too. There's obviously very, tons of pearls of wisdom that come from the phenomenal speakers and workshoppers, that are at the conference. But yeah, in the end, like I generally do not take notes at a conference. Like I like to watch and engage, and I don't want to be sitting in a book, because to me, if it's worth remembering, I'm going to remember it. And if on a personal level, I am going now in a workshop, I did take notes because that is to me more of an instruction format. But like, I don't ever take notes in any talks at all. I sit and I listen and I absorb, and I just, if it's that important to me, I'll tweet it out myself. And then that's my little reminder about that little nugget that will have changed something for me. And that's just me personally.
Take notes. You should see my notes I took on you.
I would love to. Who's this guy? Big question mark with a sad face.
Let's talk a little bit about the workshop. So how Creative South is built is that you have 2 days, and for $195 is what the price is. You get Friday and Saturday. So people who are like, well, I can't take off work, it's really just 1 day of work that you would have to. Really, you should try to get there Thursday night, but
Thursday night you get that.
Yeah, great and the opening party is terrific. But so Friday and Saturday, but again, you are getting a ton of information and content. So somebody asked me yesterday, why is it important that designers go to conferences? So to me, you're at work, you do the same thing, and it's hard to get kind of recharged and energized about something, or to find time to learn something new, so then when you go and you get thrown into the deep end with all these other people, you're going to talk about different things that they're doing, and then they become, those ideas get something sparked, and then somebody shows you something, and then you're able to take it and apply it, and you are more recharged when you get back to work, or on fire, kind of, right?
Oh, on fire. Absolutely. Yeah, it's not even recharge. It's almost inhibitively on fire. Like you have so many ideas and so much, it's like you're bouncing off the walls, and you have absolutely no clue whatsoever what to start first. And to try to like source that out over the next couple of months it's just impossible. It's like, I want to do all the things all the time right now.
If you were trying to tell somebody was like, yes, I want to go, but I would really like my job to pay for it, what would you tell the employer or the decision maker as to why this conference, one, it's a very inexpensive conference for all that you're getting, for sure. But what would you say to him? What would you say to a decision maker?
To an employee, I would tell them, not to look at it as, I'm trying to think of a way to say this right. If they're really invested in their people, that there's not a better conference you could, actually invested in the people, not in the position that this person is doing in their company, but actually invested in the person, then there's absolutely nothing better than you can do to send them to this conference, because they can completely unplug, let their guard down, and absorb, and just almost be on vacation, but still getting more than they'll get probably throughout the whole year at kind of this one place. It was like somebody just said, Blake said, it's an investment, further themselves as professionals, an investment. But, those are also kind of very kind of corporate, like, you could say that about any conference. It's just, if I was talking to an employer, they would probably send their employee when they just see me talk about it to the point where it's like, I don't even know. It's just amazing. Like, that's what I would say. Like, it's just so hard to, like half the staff, the people I met at Creative South were my wedding party.
But it's right? About getting plugged in as well. So Johnny is a boss. Yes. So he said, tell your boss, if you don't see my improvement after paying for Creative South, I will pay you back. And, that's a good thing. And Meredith went from working full time to working part time. And now she works part time at home and then goes into the office, I think 2 days a week. And she said, if anybody's boss doesn't want to send them, they should talk to my boss. I am down to part-time after having my little girl last year, and they're still sending her this year because they saw such a, that it influenced, it gives you some life, I guess. So why would somebody need to or want to go to our workshop then? If the conference is so good,
yes.
So why should they come to this Recharge and Ignite? Don't I just get the whole thing at the conference?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like, I know when we talk about it, like Peter's referencing a really funny story that if we have time, I absolutely have to tell you about the wedding. But it's, if you stood on stage, if you were there and saw my story, whether it was Weapons, Creative South Podcast, and it's that point before I got to Creative South. It was kind of the dark years, the sad years, the depressed years, the not feeling into it years. A lot of people show up to conferences, I think, like that, because I think they're hoping that a conference like this will get them charged up, right? And when you go to a conference, I mean, that is an active thing that you do. You're making the choice to go there, and you're making the choice to kind of be around people. But technically, it's still very passive. You're sitting in an audience, and somebody's talking to you, and you're taking notes. So there's a passive part. But if you're really feeling stuck, and it doesn't have to be like chronically depressed or whatever, you're just feeling stuck, a little down, maybe in some transition, just kind of, from a student perspective, just starting out, like, what is there out there, or what do I want to make sure I avoid, or how should I start, versus someone like me, 40-year-old designer, senior designer, whatever you want to call it, stupid title or whatever, who's kind of looking back and going, man, wait, I need to kind of realign and readjust myself, but I don't really know how. Taking a workshop, and specifically ours, is going to be a very active thing you can do. It'll sort of recharge you before the recharging of Creative South. I think it'll almost open you up even more to what the speakers and the stories of Creative South will give you.
Go ahead.
Because you'll be able to apply, hopefully, what we share and the stories we all share. When those speakers talk, you will hopefully should be hearing lots of parallels.
Just to kind of give people an idea. So the workshops are on Thursday. They are all individual. They're all $150, and it's extra on top of the $195 that you've already paid. And you don't have to do any of them, but you can. You can do one in each block if you really wanted to, and that's a lot of times that's what I've kind of done. But
I did that last year. I did 3 or 4 of them.
So, our workshop, I also think, is, to me, who it's perfect for is definitely for people who want to find a way to find time to do a side project, or they don't really know what they want to do, or they do know what they want to do as a side project, or they're trying to launch their side business, or they're trying to launch their business, or they're trying to get ahead in their job. It's somebody who maybe knows that where they are is not where they want to be, but they really don't know. They kind of have an idea of maybe where to get there, or maybe they have no idea where to get there. They just know that they don't want to stay there. Mm-hmm. And what we're going to do is kind of break you into groups, and you're going to be set in a group of like 5 people. And what ideally we would like is for these 5 people to stay together for the year. And granted, we know that somebody's going to drop out, like it's going to be somebody's going to fizzle out, but we are going to keep up with you all year and get you into a different group then. Because you're not going to be like, oh, you're the only one left. No, we're going to get you into something else. Right. You're not going to be left out. But
yeah, we're going to establish accountability and community.
So there's that accountability part of that. Hey, you may decide to meet every 2 weeks. And I was talking to somebody on a Slack channel yesterday, and we're like, yeah, well, they said they just didn't know how they could get everything done. And I said, well, you need to meet some other designers. You need to meet with some other people. And it doesn't have to be designers. You can meet with letterers. You can meet with illustrators. It's good to kind of have a mix. and meet with these people on a regular basis. And he said, well, I don't have time. I can't. I just can't do that. And I said, well, I can't do it in person. I never said do it in person. I can't. The reason I started Design Recharge was because I needed to connect with other people. I was doing so much freelance work and I was teaching full time.
Yep.
And I needed to be able to connect with other designers and talk to somebody. And I need to get that energy going. And so for me, having, if I didn't have other people that were spurring me on, like Ashley, when I'm oh, I don't know, after the show, I'm always Jazz, I can't do anything. I have to go talk to the secretary for 30 minutes or an hour, I just am so excited. And, but I also, it's a lot of work to do the show, but at the same time, you have people who are going to keep you accountable. And I know Eric's here, Friedrichsen, and then Scotty Russell, they meet every week. And I think it's every week. Eric, you can, but it's kind of like what Eric and Scotty and Terrence do. We're going to kind of, and granted, not exactly, because I've never, stalked into their little thing, but we're going to kind of recreate that. And so that you can find a set of people that will hold your feet to the fire, give you encouragement when you need to, but also spur you on, give you ideas. They're not going to all be people at the same time, at the same spot in their career either, because you can learn from everybody, and somebody else is going to give you something else because they don't have, it's the newness that they'll have that maybe somebody who's old like me is more jaded, and I have experience to share. I think Peter says real feedback. And so it's you can actually put something up and show them and know that you're going to get feedback to get it changed. What happens in school is, you're going to show something to your teacher. Nick met with me this morning and I was like, hey man, I'm sorry. I'm going to tell you what I think you should change. And he's like, no, that's what I want. So, and I don't know but that's what he said. Right, Nick? Anyway, but it's that people who love you and want you to do your best. And we're going to build some bonds. So we're going to do some team building first off, because you probably are like, holy crap, I can't get connected. I'm not going to connect with 5 other people randomly, but what the workshop is going to do, we're going to do some team building beforehand, right? You want to talk a little bit? Because I'm absolutely just rambling.
Yeah. No, you're nailing it to the wall. That's exactly what we're going to do. It's, it might be a very uncomfortable workshop. People who have signed up, and we've already had a good amount of signups. So those who may be in the list who have done it, thank you. And those who haven't, why not? Geez, come on. It's, and to that notion too, it might not even be about, maybe they're feeling okay in their career, but not in their life. And this workshop's for that too, because really, ultimately, I thought my, when I was depressed, I thought I was just I'm not crazy about my career, but when I came down to it, I just wasn't happy with life then. And once I started to fix that, the other stuff started to take care of itself. So, it's kind of going to be a very holistic, overview of everything, just what's eating you, and trying to get you to talk and pull into those uncomfortable places. Because if you are afraid of something or you are uncomfortable with something, I will guarantee that's the thing that's stopping you from moving forward. Promise it. No doubt. So it's kind of one of those things that we probably have one of the workshops that most people would be the most uncomfortable to take or afraid to take. But I think it would probably help them the most if they are.
But it does needs to be somebody who's going to be kind of ready to kind of take that next step. It can't be somebody who keeps giving excuses, I think. Because Eric, I'm assuming this is kind of how it is for you guys. You guys have to come and be present when you're doing your weekly talks or something. But it also means that before that weekly talk, you maybe you maybe have to, get some work done beforehand. So, if somebody's not holding your feet to the fire, then they're not really accountable. And so it doesn't really, so I teach a course called Finding Your Superpower. And I told people not to have their significant others as one of their accountability partners. And one of my students was like, and this is when I was offering it to my students as well. And they said, well, why? And I said, because you disappoint them all the time and you don't really care if it's a really, like you are going to disappoint Kristen and you're not going to be like, oh, well, I'm sorry, but it's not going to be this thing that you're going to wear over you. So you kind of want somebody who's a mentor to some extent and who is also trying to run the same race. And it's like, if you're both trying to go to the gym and you both have these goals and then you keep skipping out, then they probably are going to skip out too. But that's what this is. It's just going to the design gym, kind of.
Yeah, totally. No, absolutely. And, if you definitely could have not a significant other, although Kristen is really good at pushing me. She pushed me into the shop. I mean, like I was like, I'm not paying that kind of money. Are you crazy? And she was like, yes, you are. Let's go and sign, But yeah, that's a different, that's pushing more than like accountability. But, just having, it's kind of like going to a therapist. You want that other person. You're ready for someone who doesn't know you to say, yeah, you know what? You are so wrong. And that's, you need to hear that sometimes. And that's not as good as it could be. And it could be better. And here's things we can do together to make it better. You need that. So, in a way, like you've kind of said it, this is going to kind of be very much like a uplifting mentoring type group effort. I almost kind of wish we called it Hold Your Feet to the Fire instead of Recharge and Ignite Now, because I kind of like that. We still have time to change it.
But so thanks, Mom, for the props. She gave me and you both props. So here, let me get you even. Yeah. Okay. So one thing I think that so something Lenny did for me last week, I think, Dustin had asked, posted on Facebook, who considers yourself an illustrator, and he was asking a specific question. And I was like, oh, well, I'm not an illustrator, but I'm going to be one, and Lenny totally just put me in my place. He's like, whatever you are. And I'm like, that's an uncomfortable kind of feeling for me. But again, that's exactly what this is about. It's about having friends who actually believe in you and see what you do instead of just, Ashley says that I'm listening to the devil in my head. It's like, oh, you're choosing to listen to this person that's telling you all these bad things instead of, what you're supposed to be. And instead of seeing who I'm supposed to be, and who other people see. But I think that to me, it is having that to me is a really important, and we will be talking about this. There's actually a study, and I've been reading this book. Lenny's been reading books and I've been reading books, and the book I'm reading talks about the imposter syndrome. And there's actually something, and they thought for a while that it was just women, high achieving women who thought this, but really it ends up that there are tons of men that feel this way as well. And so it's not just a woman thing, but men probably are a little less vocal about sharing their imposter syndrome. But Lenny also shared about this in his talk, and we both have imposter stories, I think. And I think you would realize that almost everybody there on stage has that. I don't think Mike would let anybody be on stage that was just so arrogant that they couldn't get down to a regular level. And I think that's another great thing about Creative South. And things I've told my students, you just need to go talk to them. And they're like, I don't know, and there are people who I geek out a little bit over, like Von Glitchka always kind of gets me a little excited because I have all his books and it's like,
and he'll be back this year again too, hanging out with us.
So anyway, but there are people who it's better that I don't know who they are and I go up to them, I think, but there is this thing called the imposter syndrome, and what it really gels out to be is that we all feel like we aren't, someone's going to find us out. And I call it, in a talk I've done, I call it, instead of my superpower, I'm a superposer. And yeah, it's just a W to a S, but it really makes, to me, it's like, you know what, I'm no better than you. And I guess that's what the groups are, is that you have to be willing to say that you are no better than anybody else around you, and that there is something in you and that's going to help other people. And you do have to have a passion, I think, for others and empathy instead of trying to be a focus on me kind of person.
Exactly. I mean, and it's, you know, it's when you talk about like really when I told you, like, you just shut up, you're an illustrator, you know, like when I read that, I was like, oh, if I could have deleted a comment for you off Facebook, I would have just been like, delete. But really it's because I think a lot of times we attach what we are to a monetary gain. Like, well, I haven't done any paid work, so I can't really call myself an illustrator. It's like, BS, you draw, don't you? Are you're an illustrator. You know, I've gotten very little paid illustration work, you know, up to this date. I'm an illustrator. I put my work out there and I'm out there and people like what I do, and I'm an illustrator, right? But, you know, it's not how I completely make my living. And that's what I think some people, exactly, Johnny, you know, function, you know, type, it's what I am. I'm a screen printer. I'm a guitar player. I'm a dad, you know, I'm a male. I'm a, you know, it's like, that's just what we are. And you just need to own, like, when I launched my new website right before Creative South last year, or right after, I can't remember, I put on there, like, you know, Hey Monkey, custom design, branding, illustration, screen printing, right? And I just put it on there like,
claiming it.
That's what I am. I am those three things. I'm claiming it. I'm putting my flag in the ground and claiming it. And it's funny because people will be like, oh yeah, Lenny, you know, he's an illustrator. And I have done very little like paid professional illustration work. People talk to me about it, ask me for tips about it and all that. And at times I'll absolutely, throughout the whole year, I still sit back and I'm like, why are you asking me? I am, you know, I get that self-doubt and that creeps in, but everybody knows more than somebody. And so you always need to be sharing. As soon as I learned to screen print, I started teaching people. I didn't know everything. As soon as I learned, I started teaching, and you blah, 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 right? You know, you kind of just keep going forward. So, you know, it's facing that. I know we're going to be asking people about like feelings of being, you know, are they a fraud? What is their biggest fear? We're going to talk a lot about pain points. You know, so one of them is the imposter syndrome. Procrastination is a big thing for me. I've been doing a lot of soul searching and reading. I'm reading 2 phenomenal books right now on the whys of procrastination and the actual psychological factors and combating it. And there's a lot of parallels. Like a lot of times I've been seeing this pattern in when people talk about designers about like, oh, you know, I have creative ADD. I think we've heard that a lot. Like, you know, I can't, and there's some truth to that, but there's also a lot of roots in actual psychological procrastination with that. And it's like one of those things where it's like, I'm actually going to start making fun of it a little less because I'm reading these books and going, this is kind of serious. Like, this is a real thing. And I'm not saying that everybody that's like that is a procrastinator, you know, because everybody in life does procrastinate, but there's a difference between, you know, oh, I procrastinated on this and I'm a procrastinator. And that can be very, very crippling if you're a true procrastinator. Like I am. I absolutely am. And it's something that I've been really fighting hard to put out there. Lettering supply Krister, there,
right?
If I can remember the. Okay. Yeah, I can, maybe I'll tweet them out or something. The 2 books that I'm reading, because they are both phenomenal. Like within the first 50 pages, I was like, that's me again, me, raise my hand, me. And it was like real stuff. And it, you know, and stuff like that I could trace back to when I was like 10 years old, like to see that that's where it started and stuff like that. So, and I think in this day and age and culture of, you know, social media and social distractions and everything, I think a lot more of us on this planet are chronic procrastinators than we think. So even if you don't feel you are one, I think a lot of these things that we're going to talk about are going to help, you know, in that regards, you know, as well.
And, you know, I've read a bunch of books that are psychology books that doesn't make me a psychologist, but I love Brene Brown. And I think a lot of the stuff that I'm going to share has stuff that's rooted in some of these studies that they've done, and talking about shame, talking about how we connect with that. And even I think that this would be a good thing for a boss to do, so that they can be a better boss. Maybe I think would be good for somebody who's just starting out, so that they can. Yeah, I love that, making ideas happen. It was a little tough in the beginning, but once you got in, it was a terrific book. Also, Creativity Inc., how the Pixar works. That was a terrific book as well. But I read a lot and I listen a lot, really, is what I do, because I don't get to read that much. But I think it's really important that you connect with people and that you have these people who you trust and you build trust with. And some of the stuff that we're going to do in the workshop is just really to build trust right there and to get to know each other. And it's not like we're going to ask you to share it to 40 people. You know, you're going to have a little workbook that we're going to make and give to you. And then you're going to share maybe with the 5 people that are around. And then another thing that we're doing is that we are going to, me and Lenny personally, are going to connect with each of you on like a quarterly basis. It'll either be Lenny or it'll be me. And we're going to Skype or, you know, call you on the phone, and we'll figure out something just to kind of get an idea, and then maybe do a Slack channel or a Facebook group or something, that so that people can kind of have a safe place for all of us that are doing this. And again, this is something that Lenny and I are doing also. You know, we are in that group right along with you. We're more like facilitators than leaders, I guess. There is not a single person that is your group leader, that you all have to turn the wheels. And if somebody stops, then the cart can't keep going.
Right. Yeah. And that's one of the things that we're definitely going to do to build trust. I mean, you know, we're going to go around the room and kind of state names and who we are. And then we're going to kind of share right then and there, like a fear or a shame, like something that kind of opens up. But then you know, there's going to be part of the workshop where Diane takes 10 minutes and I take 10 minutes or whatever time we end up on. And, you know, and we're going to kind of spill and say, like, look, we're in it with you, but we might just be just a little further ahead, or we've done some things that work. So it's time to share. And I think that lends authenticity to it. You know, as much as, you know, you have the self, you know, I'm not an expert. I'm not like a PhD or a doctor in procrastination, all that, but I am in the field doing the same work as every person in that room. And I've gone through a lot of really crappy stuff, and I've gone through a lot of really good stuff. And here's what's worked for me. And I'm going to share it with you.
And it's just about being authentic instead of trying to, because I honestly, sometimes somebody else needs to be able to be your reflection, especially when you have a lot of negative self-talk. You can be the worst reflection of yourself. And so like one of the best things I can do as a teacher is not teach people about kerning or about letting, or whatever, you know, and I do all that. But what to me, my role is to help them find their story. And some people and just help keep them on their track. Some people, and we will talk about this a little bit more, but some people are in the middle of their journey, and maybe they're at this part of the journey, or maybe they're at this part of the journey where they're going up, but they're not where they want to be yet. And I think Lenny and I both are in that place. We're not where we want to be. We're not at that. And you know, in a way, I hope I never get there, because it means that I will have stopped growing or stopped learning if I stop, you know, that's where a plateau happens. So a lot of times people get into a plateau situation around maybe 30, 35, if they've been working straight from like 22. And I don't remember how old you were when you went and just stayed home with Bella.
That was 26 till 30. Well, I mean, technically still, because I work for myself, but the main years was like 26 to, 36, 37.
So, you know, that there is a time frame where you think, is this it? And some people will just be like, I guess this is it. I'm going to go to my job and then I go home. But then there's so many people like Bob Ewing and Peter Del Tondo. There's so many awesome people that have just shared their story. And maybe it's a story of struggle. I mean, Bob showed from day one, his lettering. And, it was like, to me, he sees things now that I'm trained. Like, I feel like, I went to VCU. It's like tight Nazi school. And they like really, we really know. And Bob sees so much more than I am able to see. And, I want to keep learning from Bob, but he shared that and he wasn't like, hey, you know what? My stuff's awesome. I'm going to go ahead and share that on Instagram. Like, he's like, no, I need help. I'm just going to share this, hopefully. And I think probably with social media, it gave him encouragement, but then there were also people who were like, hey man, maybe you should work on this, or why don't you try this? But it's also about having a teachable spirit. I also think this course, our workshop, is for people who I would say have a teachable spirit. And maybe you're in a part of your life or a part of your career where you maybe feel like you're plateaued and you haven't really seen much growth,
Yeah. It's absolutely what it is. You're ready for something to change, but you might not know exactly what that is yet. And it's okay if you leave the workshop not knowing what that is yet.
Right.
But you'll definitely get some things to either find it, or if you already found it, to start acting on it. So like everybody's going to walk out with different takeaways. And depending, and so we're going to, there could be, I hope there's like somebody in there that just blows my world wide open. Right. Like, it's just like, I never, here I am teaching the workshop and I want somebody sitting out there for me to be like, and what you just said totally fixed some problem I've been having.
Sometimes just sharing your story helps somebody else, and that you shared something. I think that was one of the things that shocked you, was that so many people, you were like, I don't know how they're going to take this, but I'm all out. But because you were all out, it let so many people like grow from that. And so Peter said, Peter Whiskey Branding said, and I can't remember what Peter's last name is, so sorry. People need to learn how to find creative empowerment, how it helps push them to be better designers and reach bigger dreams, which is a problem. Oh man, it just moved. Which is a problem with designers, because we all think we're stuck when in reality we're rock stars. That's right. That's because you all have a superpower. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I kind of remember the night before my talk, I was up at 3:30 in the morning, and, Kristen had flown in, my then fiance, now wife. And I was just up and I was like, eyes wide open. And I was like, this is going to be horrible. Oh my God. Like, what am I doing? This is the stupidest thing I've ever agreed to do, and it was the best thing ever. Right. Like, I just went into this very scary place, and that's kind of what you need to do, is kind of like, you just need to find it and own it, and sometimes fake it.
You do. So the lady I'm reading is Amy Cuddy. And if you've ever seen her TED Talk, I use that talk a lot in my classes, because I think confidence is something I think students think that they're going to have when they graduate, but they don't. And so Amy Cuddy talks about physically, standing like this, or, I mean, it'd be a little weird to do it like this, but talks about, just, it actually changes your body and, your cortisol there, like whatever gets released, I don't know. I'm not that kind of doctor, but she talks about a lot of other things. And it's just, sometimes it's about listening. It's about being present in the moment. But the confidence comes after. We want trust with other people before we want confidence. And so when you share your vulnerability, that increases trust, but you also have to claim it. Like you said, stake that flag. So anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, honestly, this whole workshop idea really was born out of someone doing that to me after the talk. Our friend Mina, I'll say her name. I went off stage because I was so late, and just immediately, and I was backstage, so I backdoored it where the vendor hall was, because I just went through the back and was just standing there kind of like, hell just happened. Like, right. Like it was literally like, I was like, oh my gosh. And, here comes this woman that I've never met before. Like she, lack of a better phrase, she hauled ass into that vendor hall, like with tears in her eyes. Because, what I had said, it connected. And she told me like, and since then we've become great friends. And like her story, and she just like on me, right? Like just everything, because she just felt like it was okay to talk about it and release it. And like, really, it's because of her, solely because of her, her, it's really everything. But like, I think of her more than anybody else since the conference, that I really have decided, like, that's what made me decide, like, I want to do something with this. Like, this is bigger than standing up on stage and talking. This can help some people and then keep helping me. Because, I had a crappy year last year. It was just like a bad year overall, like, new business, not bad. I mean, I got married. That was wonderful, but there were some low spots, right? Yeah, I know. Make sure Kristen doesn't watch the replay of this. But yeah, there was, it wasn't a bad year. There were the low spots were really low. The high spots were really high. And you could say that for every year, but I definitely, when I hit the low spots, I had to dig back into some of the things that got me out of them in the first place and come back, right? And kind of, readjust myself and things like that. So that's even further cemented why I wanted to do a workshop like this, because everyone's going to fall. It's that story about the guy falls in the hole. People walk by, and then a friend walks by and the friend jumps in the hole and he was like, what are you doing? Now we're both stuck in the hole. And the friend says, but I've been in the hole before and I know the way out. So it's kind of like, we all fall in the hole and we're all going to fall in the hole, but there's some of us who have come out and we can at least share our experiences in hopes that will pull.
And I think part of this workshop is just getting people to have a safe place to find some of those friends that can get in that hole with you. Because if you're honest and you're authentic, then you're going to share when you're in the hole and when you need help. I really don't feel that I'm good at this. I feel like I am a fraud at this, or somebody's going to find me out. And and you need somebody to at least listen to you say that, and that, acknowledge that you're in that place. And I think that I think everybody just wants their life to make a difference. And that's kind of like where what I've just kind of recently, that's just really what I think, that's part of my mission, I think. But you really don't know the impact that you make. If Mina had not gone and, it's Tara calling me. She forgets that I do this every day. Anyway, or every Wednesday. She's coming to Creative South, thankfully. I can't talk to you right this second. You don't know the impact that you make on people. And there was a teacher who pretty much saved my life, and I will tell a little bit more about that story in our workshop. But to me, I have tried to find this man, and I can't find him. So, because your story helped Mina. Really, Mina might not realize that your story, somebody really wants me, that your story helped, her story helped you, and your story helped her. It's like, I can't mute my phone. For some reason, I have my sister's old phone. It doesn't mute anymore. Sorry. So I usually just sit on it. So I'll just do that.
Yeah, it was, and we've talked a lot since Creative South, Mina and I, but, I have only physically seen her for 5 minutes since April 2015, when she ran up, and then we both went off our separate ways. And, but like we've talked, and every time we've talked, it's just been like, you are my, my spiritual journey soulmate type person in terms of like our story. Like my story is the male version of her story, and her story is the female version of my story. It's unbelievable parallels. And even our outcomes are very, similar. I'm now newly married, but she's in an amazingly supportive relationship. And, not that you have to be in a relationship to improve or be better, but when you have somebody right there to support you, it's
right.
Really nice. So it's just, yeah, absolutely. Like she probably doesn't know. She's going to know at Creative South because I'm just going to gush all over her. Because she's just, I cannot, like, we're literally like, we text each other like 1 month, you know, we're like, oh, see you soon. Or, so yeah, it's, and that right there is what Creative South is.
So Johnny asks, other than y'all's seminar, what's one event no one should miss at Creative South? What would you say?
Johnny, do you mean like a workshop or just in general the whole weekend?
What would you say?
I would say the thing you should not miss is eating with people. Like that, it's the non-conference events that are the magic. So, you know, a lot of people think, you know, getting the value of the conference is sitting down and seeing every speaker. And of course it is, because they're all amazing. But like, it's those non-conference moments, you know, amongst the staff, and we've even said it publicly. And, you know, obviously, you know, we are honored to have every speaker we do, but like in Creative South, and even the speakers will tell you this. I was one, so I will tell you this, man, it's not about the speakers. It's about the moment before, the moment after. It's about the hotel lobby at 2 a.m. when you're coming in, maybe a little bit drunk. And somebody's just sitting at that table working or talking, and that's when it happens. Like,
I think it's also just walking down the street. It's also being okay with being alone next to somebody you don't know. And I know that there were just people that were sitting near me, like Russ Pate, who I love. We had a great conversation before a speaker, just because he was sitting near me. And it's about asking. Peter Del Tondo said this, hey, can I eat with you? Like he says, if you don't know anybody, I didn't know anybody the first year. And I honestly tell people, hey, I'm not, you know, if I know you, I'm probably not going to spend much time with you over this weekend. You know, I'm going to make some new friends and because I already know that I like you. So I'm going to spend some time with some new people. And granted, I got to eat dinner with Jason Craig, and I really enjoyed that. He's one of my favorite people, and he's here. I think Artzilla Lives, I think, is him. But it's about just giving yourself the opportunity to do something that might be uncomfortable, and just say, and I mean, I'm awkward. I am just an awkward kid. Like, I tell terrible jokes and nobody gets it. And I just don't interact with as many people as I should, probably. I mean, I interact with my students all the time, so they already know I'm weird. So it's kind of like, oh no, if she's too vocal, everybody else will know, you know? But because most of the thing, like with this, I'm not talking. I'm just asking good questions, because I can usually ask pretty good questions. So, but I think it's just about being there. I also would say eating. I mean, not physically the food. I mean, granted, but it's the conversation, and it's walking to the places, not driving. Yeah. You know, and it's like I think Kevin said bridge party, but I think the bridge party is cool if you attack it like, hey, you know what? I'm going to meet some new people, and I'm short.
Yes, not networking,
right,
but making friends, building.
And if you don't know anybody, you need to come see me, and I'm going to introduce you to somebody. But you also need to volunteer. Like, to me, volunteering is the best way to meet people. I remember last year it was like, and I know I totally freaked out Rob Brink. I have bought a lot of his products too, which I know my friend Dustin's probably like, what? Anyway, he's not, I'm sure. But so he came up, and I was the person who was checking him in, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's Rob Brink. And he's like, yeah, you know, he would just like, it was sort of, he was afraid of me a little. And, but anyway, to me, I thought that was a kind of a funny moment, you know, that there are people who I really look up to, and you just need to go up to them and not, you need to get over that moment.
I remember in 2014, so I played music at the opening party that year. I was a guitar player, you know, in the opening band at the party that year. And then the closing party, or not closing party, but one of the after parties, a day or two later. This was the year Justin Mizell spoke, which was hands down still one of my favorite talks ever. Like his was the gold standard when I was doing my talk. Like I kind of, you don't want to compare because it's going to be different, but I was like, that to me blew me away. And I remember seeing him at the party, and I've gotten pretty good at not putting people on pedestals and things like that. Cause I've learned at Creative South that just isn't the case anyway. But, just for him, I love his work. I loved his talk. It really connected with me. And he was talking to somebody. So I kind of did the somewhat awkward, okay, I'm going to stand here and kind of look at you. So, I want to talk to you, but I'm not going to interrupt your conversation pose. Right. And so I'm kind of standing there and he's talking. And then all of a sudden he breaks up the conversation and he comes over and puts his hands on my shoulder and he goes, "Oh my God, you are an amazing guitar player." And it just was here I was almost nervous about meeting him. And he just it was just, again, that he just broke that ice of saying something like that to me. And then, boom, now we're off and running. And, last year we tripped each other up on the escalator, getting creative. It's we've become just buddies, through that because, we just looked at each other as people and not even peers, right? It was just literally a person who happens to be at the same thing I am. So that's what it is just the non-conference events. There's a long answer to Johnny's question, but there's so much. It's so easy to talk about Creative South.
I don't remember your guitar playing because that doesn't rank high in my book, I guess. Anyway, but I remember that you it was swing dance music, and I was like, I want to swing dance next year. And then there was no swing dance scene. I noticed the next year, but anyway, maybe we can do it this year. My old boyfriend used to flip me. I could do a backflip. Anyway, we had a lot of fun.
Amy is quite the dancer.
Well, Amy will have to dance together.
Let me tell you what. Johnny, prep for our workshop. Just be ready to be open. We're actually not actively prepping or sending out questions ahead of time because we want to kind of get people in there and be like, okay. And then bam, hit them with a question that makes them go oh, our purpose is to push people into some of those uncomfortable, fearful places to get that honest, true answer and discussion. So I guess, just by virtue of you asking it and me saying that, you're already one step ahead of anybody else who may not be here in knowing that could be coming. But that's really it, is just kind of be ready to be open and discuss and share and be part of the workshop. You may end up teaching the workshop more than we will by the end of it. Who knows? It's going to be a very organic, very structurally unstructured. I think in our nature, Diane and I are going to plan it and structure it, but we're also giving it time to go off.
Because as we started doing this, it was you're going to talk for 2 minutes, and then I'm going to talk for 2 minutes, and then we had this whole thing out, and there was no time for y'all. And I know because I know how long things take in the class because I do it every day or 2 days a week or whatever. So we've kind of slimmed down. We've gotten some really good questions that are good group questions. You're going to have time for your group stuff. The big group stuff, get you comfortable. And then I agree. There's really not a ton of prep. But I think just being there and being authentic and saying, you know what? I don't know if I'm ready for a group, and just being honest. If you are sitting in a group, then just tell them where you are. And there may be people who just are I don't know. I'm really kind of scared. I don't know if I have that kind of time, or if I'm not ready at that place. And that again, maybe is something that we pull you out and put you with some other people who might be in some of those same places, or they're just not ready yet, or that we still contact you, but you're just not at that place yet.
Absolutely. And the good thing, bonus for our workshop, is it butts right up until lunch. So we've got a custom made lunch group ready to go, which is something that I definitely want to push. I would love for us to have these conversations and then all go together, just whoop, and and anybody else who wants to sign on with us as we're walking is welcome to come as well. But I think so in a way we luck out because we get the workshop, and if people are ready to still dig and talk, we've got another 2 hours right afterwards.
And I think Johnny, I know you have a pretty big team of designers, I think, but this is something that you could come back and you could hopefully maybe facilitate for them to go and find other designers in the area that could also be this, because you don't want just your team getting your team, which is good at work, but it also helps, helps build them and get other stuff that they're not, if they're just eating from your same grocery store, then they're not going to get any of the farmers stuff or, anything else. You kind of have to let them scout around. And I think showing them, if you're somebody who's thinking about, well, how is this really going to help me and my bottom line at work? Or how is this, it sounds like it's just really more a personal thing that's going to help me personally, which it would. But I also think it's a really good kind of leadership training for you for you to be a mentor to somebody else and for you to be that kind of facilitator.
Yep. And yes, Johnny, Diane and I actually want to try to, hopefully, if it goes well, do this outside of Creative South. Go to AIGA chapters or companies, or just do them as one-offs where the creative community can come. This is definitely our test bed. It's just like my talk. Like, I could not have spoken at a better place than Creative South, because it was my safe place. So that's why we're doing the workshop here, because it's definitely our safe place, because we know not only do people know us and will be accepting, but we also know that we can get some real feedback ourselves off of this. What worked, what didn't work, because not everything's going to work, and we're going to realize that as well.
Well, we're super over. So for the rapid recharge. Anyway, thank you guys so much. And thank you, Lenny, always. And I will see you. Good. Yay. Johnny's changed his mind. So I can't wait. Thank you guys for coming today and just listening in. Really appreciate it. And it's going to be a really great workshop, but there are tons of great workshops. I know, just go and look, but whatever workshop you go to, be ready to dig in and get and meet people in that workshop. If you sit at a table with just people, I would encourage you to go sit somewhere else. Yeah. Sit at another table and meet other people, because it's going to help you be the better person and the better designer that you were meant to be.
And I'm going to have to, I got to give a quick plug to one of the other workshops, because they're my peeps. Any ladies that happen to be here, my friend Lydia and Nikki are putting together an amazing, it's Badass Broads, Women in the Creative Business workshop. I mean, they're really putting together some cool stuff. So check it out. And they're going to be hopefully working on even roping in some of the other phenomenal female speakers and talent that we have at the conference that weekend. So I've definitely got to give them a push, because they're my hometown AIGA peeps. Did you? Oh, right. Good. They're really working at doing some cool stuff. Like, they're diving deep. So I think that's going to be another one. I think between our workshop and that workshop, we're going to have a lot of people walking around with some, maybe some tears in their eyes and some empowerment. Yeah, that's right.
It is. These are the kinds I like.
But
they're good for lots of tears. So next week I have Tim Frame, who's also an educator, but he is wicked good at design. And he
will be at Creative South.
He does. He usually goes to Creative South, and I'm sure he's going this year. I can't wait. He was here earlier. I can't wait to have him on. It'll be my first time interviewing him. He's just a really cool cat. He just kind of laid back, really. I think as a teacher, we would be kind of like opposites. I think he would be like, yeah, well, maybe that will work for you. And I'm like, that sucks. Do this different or something, But I'm just thinking I can prepare my students for a different thing. So we're going to geek out a little bit maybe. And he is amazing t-shirt designer, and I will be wearing one of his t-shirts next week. So, and it's a robot, which I love. So anyway, excited to see Tim Frame come next week, same time, 2:30. Well, no, not Pacific. It'll be way later. 2:30 Eastern, 11:30 Pacific. If you want to follow me, I'm at Design Recharge on everything. And if you want to follow Lenny, he's Hey Monkey Design on just about everything too, right?
Yeah, actually on everything. Facebook, Twitter, Dribble, Instagram, website.
So next week, same time, it won't be a rapid recharge, really quick. And I actually think I'm going to have my sister on the next rapid recharge, which is in a couple of weeks, which I'm really excited because she's super smart and she's going to Creative South too. So Yeah. So
Is she? Huh. Which is funny because like I work 5 minutes from your sister, and we totally need. I should have lunch with her because like
she started her own thing. Yeah. She's doing consulting. I'm doing her logo. Yay. So anyway, I'm real excited for her. So she's worked for MTV. She's worked for a ton of startups. She's a marketing person, and she's wicked smart. Awesome. So and she'll be good hanging out with Fraser and all those guys because she loves basketball. So she'll geek out with them.
Yeah, she'll have them right under the table, man. She ain't gonna be able to hang with her.
Anyway, we both did not start out blonde, but we're both blonde now. So she one time said, I don't know why you went blonde. I was like, well, they do have more fun, but I'm smart because I used to be a brunette. So, oh yeah. And so Johnny's actually going to be at Flourish. He's one of our panelists, and he is also going to be a reviewer. So all day we've got Johnny and his wife, Stacy. So I'm excited to see him. And Scotty Russell. So Scotty Russell's, this is this Saturday.
Yes.
And he's going to be speaking at Creative South too. So this was a huge...
Yes, he was just added.
I know. So it was a huge plug for Creative South. If you can't figure out a way to get there, you should come volunteer with me. It's a really reduced ticket. You have to do 4 hours of work. So I am really excited. And even if you already have a ticket and you just want to volunteer, I totally could use you. It's totally worth it. Like I've always volunteered every year, and we're going to work around once we get the speaker schedule. So just email me at diane@designrecharge.org if you want to volunteer. All right. Thanks, guys.
Yay.
See you next week.
Thanks, everyone.